So video game controversies are all the rage nowadays, as seen with very polarizing opinions on this channel. But one thing I think we can all agree with when it comes to video games, especially if you're a bit of an old person like myself, is limited run games is definitely a very, very love-hate relationship. And it's usually the extreme opposites of those emotions that you tend to feel with them. Now, the things I love about limited run games is, of course, bringing back classic games with new features for modern platforms. You know, stuff that we wouldn't have gotten now being available on the Nintendo Switch eShop or PSN. Of course, the Carbon Engine stuff has been really good lately that my friend Modern Vintage Gamer, a British man who cosplays as an Australian, has brought about to that company. They've brought back a lot of classic games that people really like, and sometimes there's additional features and stuff. I definitely like that side of things. But to say they're not a controversial company would be an understatement, because there is a lot of controversy with them, usually when it comes to the physical side of things. Long wait times, you know, things you order something and a year or two later it shows up. Questions about price structures and things like that. Do they announce things too soon? And I mean, really, there's a whole myriad of controversies with this company. Now, I've been following limited run games ever since its inception. There's a video on this channel from like probably 6 or 7 years ago, where I went to their headquarters in North Carolina and hung out with Doug and Josh for the day. This was when they were a much smaller operation, just doing PlayStation 4 stuff. But I feel like along the way, much like Arcade 1UP, some of the vision has been potentially a bit lost. But there's a controversy going on right now that I feel like I need to talk about, because this is something that I just feel is not right. And, you know, I'm not saying you need to boycott the company or anything like that, but I do think that this is a point that needs to be brought up so that they can potentially learn from this and correct their course of action with what they're doing right now. Now, if you've been paying attention to limited run games, they've really gotten into the 3DO library as of late. Now, the 3DO was a very niche console that came out during the mid-90s, and it wasn't very successful, but it was a CD-based console that did have some pretty cool games. Really, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo was the best game on the platform, but it had some interesting stuff. Of course, FMV games, point-and-click style games, and Limited Run seems to be a bit of on a kick right now with re-releasing some 3DO games. Recently, Plumbers Don't Wear Ties, which is a terrible full motion video game that does have some nice boobage in it, which is really the selling point of the game, and a game called D were coming out via limited run games, getting re-releases with premium editions and nice cover packages and stuff like that. And obviously, these two games are not games that like young people are going to be interested in. You know, these are games that are going towards a die-hard audience. These are games that are going to 3DO collectors or just people who like to buy limited run stuff and then in hopes of selling it for higher prices at a later date. Now, D is a better game than Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. You know, I played it on the Sega Saturn. I never played the 3DO version, but I enjoyed the game. A bit cryptic, point-and-click style game with puzzle solving, survival horror elements. I definitely like D2 on the Dreamcast a lot more. But to re-release these games on the original system was kind of odd to me, because how many people actually have like a 3DO out there? You know, how many people that have a 3DO maybe don't already have these games? I guess there might be a market for it, but these just seemed kind of weird. And the fact that like D never released on modern platforms, which I think would be something really cool, it definitely left a lot of questions with people. Well, copies of D are coming in to consumers right now, and there's a big scandal going on. So going over to Twitter, we will see here a thread done by Voltar. I think sometimes Voltar likes me, sometimes he follows me, and then sometimes he doesn't. So I don't know. He's an interesting cat. Like he's cool. I got no beef with Voltar. But Voltar makes a tweet based on a tweet from Todd Gill, the Retro Frog, and it says the following. I know I talk about a lot of things on here, and people might consider this drama. It's not drama, but please just hear me out and read until the end. This company is problematic in many ways than one, and it's becoming exhausting. Limited Run Games charges an absolute premium for their limited releases, yet they are burning CDRs for some of the disc-based titles. Yes, you read that correctly. Limited Run Games is burning CDs and selling them as limited game releases. Limited Run Games is charging $60+ for these 3DO games, and they're literally burning them to cheap CDR media. How can you in good conscience take people's money without even properly having these discs pressed? What's limited about a CDR backup? This is the definition of low effort grifting. Limited Run Games is literally ripping people off with their grifts. Please share and retweet this so that we can be better informed, because whether you like it or not, if nobody says anything about this, then everyone suffers. And I completely agree with that. I recognize that many larger YouTube channels have vested interest in shoring these people up, but I'm not going to turn a blind eye to this community. You people deserve to be treated better and more fairly. Outrageous. So here you could see the $69 giggity version of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties and the $65 edition of D, the Game Collector's Edition. Now, D, I'm not sure the price of Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. I know the original copy of D goes for like $100+, like depending on the condition. You know, usually like $100 is like bare bones edition of the original 3DO release, and nicer versions go for a bit of a higher price. Now, you can see the tweet here that this is referencing, and this is from Todd Gill, the Retro Frog, Ribbit. LOL, Limited Run Games is shipping out 3DO games on CDR rather than pressed discs. And the best part, they won't even work on real hardware. So you can see here where Todd has taken a look at how this disc was created after getting the disc in, and it clearly is a CDR disc. Now, in order to understand why this is a big deal, you kind of got to look at Todd's last little statement here that won't even work on real hardware. Now, that's not entirely true, but it is based in reality, because the thing about 3DO is there is no copyright protection on the 3DO. This is just like the Sega CD, where you could technically just burn a disc on a CDR and play it in that system. You could burn any Sega CD game onto a disc, and as long as you do it at the right speed, it will write to the disc properly and your Sega CD will recognize it. The thing about the 3DO, though, is that there wasn't just one manufacturer of the 3DO. There are many different versions of the 3DO. And some versions, yes, they won't play any CDR games. Now, some versions will play the games, but it has to be burned at a specific speed in order to run on the system. You know, it can't be done at like maximum speed just to get it done with. You have to burn it at a slower speed so that all of the data gets properly put onto the disc. Now, the reason I feel that this is a big deal to me personally is because, like I said at the start, this isn't something that's for like, you know, just like kids or something like that. Like, nobody is buying a 3DO game unless they're like an old person who has nostalgia for the 3DO and potentially owns a 3DO, so they want to play this game, and maybe they don't want to pay the $100 plus price of D for the, you know, 3DO. They want to get this version that comes with some little extras and stuff like that. Like, you're taking advantage of the core audience who has been supporting you since day one. Kids don't care about physical stuff. You know, it's the adults, it's the older people who grew up with physical media, and it definitely feels like you're taking advantage of them. I think this whole situation could have easily been avoided, though, if at the time of the listing of the games you said, hey, this is a CDR game. This is not a game that is being pressed. A pressed game will work. A CDR game, your mileage will vary. And I think if that was up front and clear at the time of the announcement of these games and during the pre-order window, like, it would just fall onto the consumer themselves for not doing their due diligence and looking into how this game was manufactured and if it would work on their system or not. Like, look at NES repros. Some NES repros don't work on clone hardware. So, you know, you have to know that going in. You have to reveal all this information before you put it out there. Because if you don't, you have a situation like this where it's like people are pissed, and they're rightfully pissed. Now, granted, it's probably a small section of people who actually picked up this game. It's probably a small section of people who, you know, intended to play this game and not just shelf collect it, but that doesn't matter. All because it's a small segment of the audience doesn't make it any less bigger of a deal. And this is just completely bad optics. Really, at the end of the day, this is something that should have been presented at the start of the pre-order window. Hey, this is a CDR. You know, it might work on your 3DO. It might not. Depends on what model you have. Depends on this, that, or the other. Because people are getting this disc, and it's not working on their 3DO. Now, I'm not sure which version of the 3DR, whether it's the Gold Star or the top loader one or whatever it is, which one is the version that works best with this. But the fact that this is even an issue is very ridiculous. And limited run games, like, you know, much like Arcade 1-Up, I think these two companies are perfect parallels of each other. During their initial stages, during their sort of, you know, coming up party, you know, where they're getting bigger, where they're starting to gain a following and stuff like that, you're allowed to make mistakes. You know, you're a newer company, you're not quite sure of what you're doing at times and stuff like that. People are a lot more lenient. But when you're an established company that's been around for quite a while, at the forefront of a particular sector of video games, and you're still making mistakes that shouldn't be made, then you got to be a little bit more critical about the situation. I'm sure this will indefinitely delay my Jurassic Park Collector's Edition and my Rocket Knight non-Collector's Edition, the $65 one, for the Switch, but like, bro, you got to talk about this kind of stuff. Like, I don't, you know, Voltar said he felt it was drama. I don't think this is drama. I think this is just consumer awareness of a literal problem that is happening that shouldn't be happening. You know, if you need to, if for whatever reason you decide not to press the discs and you go the CDR route, let the consumer know that up front, and then you completely avoid this situation because nobody can be really mad. That's all I really got to say about this situation, though. Shoutouts to Todd Gill, the Retro Frog, and Voltar for bringing this out into the forefront. And let me know what you think about this in the comments section down below. How does this sit with you? Do you think this is fair, or do you think that this is a problematic behavior that needs to be corrected and addressed? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.